Everyone at an autocross is looking to find speed. It's your top priority and your toughest challenge. Because speed is hidden in all the little nooks and crannies out on course, novices and veterans alike know it can be difficult to find. Having an instructor in your car is a huge help, but some clubs don't have instructors on hand. That's one of the main reasons why I made videos about looking ahead, increasing your duration of acceleration, eliminating braking, how to attack common autocross course elements, and the top 5 autocross driving mistakes. You can find them in my Autocross Tips playlist. This video builds on those fundamentals. It covers what you can do at an autocross event from your first course walk to your last run to improve your technique and your times. Finding speed starts with your course walk. Walking the course allows you to determine and refine your attack strategy, identify the important cones, and find your braking zones. Autocross events are very social, and it's good to walk with your friends and faster, more experienced drivers. But socializing during your course walks isn't the best way to find speed. Keep the conversation focused on the elements, the line, and the tricky spots on the course. Always do 1 or 2 course walks by yourself just to make sure you're completely focused. Doing multiple course walks is the best way to prevent DNFs. Your attack strategy is based on your overall assessment of the course. A fast course has more open elements than a slow course. But just because a course is fast doesn't mean there aren't slow sections. And just because a course is slow doesn't mean there aren't fast sections. Your course walks allow you to get a sense of the rhythm of the course. As you walk, identify the slow elements. Identify the fast elements. Then link elements together to determine how aggressive you can be. Linking elements together will help you find speed by letting you anticipate when the course is opening up or getting tighter. Knowing which elements are going from slow to fast or fast to slow will help you time your acceleration and braking. There can be 100 cones out on course, but only a few cones actually matter. I call those attack cones. Attack cones require you to make a steering input, throttle input, or brake input. The right input at the right moment will vastly improve your times. Keep in mind, sometimes your inputs will come before or after the attack cones. For example, when you see an attack cone you have to backside, you'll start your turn before that cone, not at that cone. As you walk the course, you're making mental notes. Backsiding this cone will set me up to go through the element faster. Getting on the gas here will give me the longest duration of acceleration. I need to brake here to set my entry speed for the next element. Once you identify the slow areas of the course on your course walks, you can find your braking zones. You want to brake as late as possible without braking and turning at the same time. Knowing your car's braking capability is key here. You want to define the shortest braking zone possible based on how fast you think you'll be approaching an element and how fast you think you can go through that element. But you have to leave room for adjustment when you're actually driving into the element at speed. Let's look at 2 braking zones on this course. My line through the lane change creates a long straight. This is a very fast element, but the next element is tight and slow. I know I have to turn and I have to brake before starting that turn. On my course walks, my braking zone is somewhere between the second cones in the last part of the lane change and the point at which I have to start to turn. But because this lane change is very fast, I know I'll need to brake earlier rather than later in my braking zone. On my runs, I'll start at the earliest point in my braking zone, then shorten my braking zone to allow for a longer duration of acceleration. In this example, my goal would be to hit the brakes just past the last cone in the last part of the lane change. In the slalom, I know I can start accelerating past the third cone. And I want to start my turn ahead of the first offset cone. The offset cones after the slalom are slow. My braking zone is between the last slalom cone and the point at which I have to turn. On my runs, I'll try to stay on the gas past the last slalom cone. Adjusting your braking zones within the windows you defined on your course walks will help you find speed. Many people draw maps of the course to help them prepare for their runs. Remember, it might be a few hours between your course walks and your runs. Having a map that details your line, the fast and slow sections, the attack cones, and braking zones can really help. Walking the course will give you a lot of useful information to help you put down a fast first run. But it's worth noting that things change at speed. This is especially true for high-speed sections and braking zones. Course walks are an important first step in finding speed. But what happens after your first run is even more important. Even the fastest drivers will make mistakes on their runs. The difference between winning and losing comes down to who makes the fewest mistakes on course. In order to eliminate errors, you have to identify them. What mistake did you make? Where on course did it happen? And what's the solution? Trying to log your mistakes in your mind while finishing out your run can lead to making more mistakes. The best solution I've found is to record my runs. You don't need an expensive camera, just one that can play back the videos. You can even use your phone. But you do need a good mount. You don't want your phone or camera to come loose during a run. Mistakes are more obvious on camera, and video is more accurate than your memory. Watch to see if the car is pushing or going sideways, and listen for the sound of late throttle inputs, hesitation, or letting off the gas too early. Video can be especially helpful if you DNF. It can be hard to remember or even to realize where you've gone off course. Having video will help you pinpoint the exact element that tripped you up. If you can't or don't want to record your runs, you'll have to rely on memory. We tend to remember the bigger mistakes we make, which are often the biggest time killers. However you choose to identify your errors, prioritize fixing the bigger mistakes. And make sure you assess those mistakes honestly. If you're pushing in every slow element, or going sideways in every turn, you are the problem, not the course. If you DNF, the priority is to get a clean run. If you don't know where you DNF'd, and you don't have video of your run, go for a ride along with someone who knows the course. Watch the faster cars between your runs. Look at their brake lights. When do they come on? How long are they on for? Are you braking in the same spots? Listen to their throttle inputs. Are they on the gas earlier than you? Are they staying on the gas longer? Are you running the same line? Street category Miatas can be very helpful here. They have to stay on the gas as long as possible, use the brakes as little as possible, and run a line that doesn't add length to the course or choke off speed. Taking advantage of every opportunity you have to identify the errors you're making on course will help you eliminate them, and that will help you find speed. Cars can go faster in a straight line than they can in a curve. Autocross courses are often defined by turns, but there are hidden straights on every course. Finding and attacking those straights will help you get faster. The scale of my course is a little off, and the driving lines aren't exactly perfect, but they're close enough to illustrate my points. Here's a section of course that appears to be all turns. But when you look at the racing line through these elements, there are actually hidden straights. Some are long and some are short, but they all provide an opportunity to find speed. These are your acceleration zones within and in between elements. Once you've identified a straight, try to extend your acceleration zone as much as possible on every run. If you know a straight is coming, you can roll on the throttle as you unwind the steering wheel in anticipation of getting the steering wheel straight. Then stay on the gas until you have to hit the brakes. One extra foot on the front end or back end of a straight will increase your duration of acceleration and shave time. You are almost always going to see a slalom on an autocross course. Even if you're backsiding the cones and running a tight line, you can get faster by focusing on your entry speed and your exit speed. Let's start with entry speed. If you're accelerating through an equally spaced slalom, raise your entry speed. Your braking zone into a slalom can vary depending on how tight or how open the spacing is. But as I've said before, you'll want to brake before you turn. And ideally, you only want to use the brakes once to set your speed through the slalom. Braking too early will cost you time. You want to brake as late as possible without compromising your ability to maintain the correct line. Determining if you have to brake before the first cone, or if you can brake after the first cone, will help you find speed when entering a slalom. Let's look at exit speed. This slalom exits into a straight section. It's fast out. It's common for people to think they have to wait until they're at the last slalom cone to accelerate. But the acceleration zone actually starts earlier. How early depends on how much grip you have, how much steering input you have in the car, and how well you backside this cone. Waiting to accelerate until the last slalom cone means you're getting on the gas late and sacrificing speed. Being early on the gas gets you to your exit speed faster, and that will help you find speed. The cones determine the elements on the course. They do not define the line. Your job behind the wheel is to find the fastest line through the course and put your car where it needs to be. Every run gives you an opportunity to adjust your line to shorten the course, create straights, and make smooth arcs that allow you to limit steering inputs and braking inputs, or increase your duration of acceleration. All of those will help you find speed. 99% of the time, the shortest line that doesn't choke off speed will be the fastest. The best example of this can be found in sweepers. Sweepers can be tough in our big, heavy Mustangs. Our ponies have a tendency to want to push wide. But a wide line in a sweeper adds length to the course. Running a tighter line might mean driving a bit slower, but every foot closer to the outer wall of cones is costing you time by adding distance. Tightening up your line in sweepers will help you shave time. Generally, you want to run the tightest line through every element. But in some rare cases, adding a little distance can add speed. This is an age-old autocross debate, and it depends on how fast the element itself is and how fast the next element is. Always consider the distance from one element to the next element when you're deciding whether or not to deviate from the ideal line. Adjusting your line might slow you down in one element, but increase your average speed through a longer section of the course. But in slow sections with multiple tight elements, adding distance will cost you time. Let's assume that after this element, the course is fast and open. The shortest line through this element looks like this. But in this case, it's not the fastest way through. You have to brake to make the first tight turn, get a small burst of acceleration, then brake in order to turn and backside the last cone. Smoothing out the arcs does add some distance, but it allows you to lift off the throttle instead of braking when you enter the element, lets you accelerate earlier and longer by creating a straight, and still lets you backside the last cone. This is a faster line. Here's another example. The line tightest to the cones through this section looks like this. But if it's followed by a long straight, this line will be faster. The smoother arcs allow you to backside this cone and let you start accelerating just a little bit earlier. The smoother arc exiting lets you go a little faster too. Every thousandth of a second counts at an autocross. Adjusting your line to find even the smallest areas where speed is hiding will pay off in your times. Every autocross course is different, but they're all made up of similar elements. The more experience you get, the more speed you'll find, but only if you set yourself up to search for speed from the second you set foot on course. Every course walk, every error, every straight, slalom, and line adjustment gives you valuable information to improve your ability to attack every course you'll come across.